kicking off with West Ham versus Chelsea. It's a London derby, and it's a game that Declan Rice, I was listening to a couple of fans on the radio the other day, and they were saying that Declan Rice, in the last game against Brighton, he was being very, very careful, and it hurt his performance because he didn't want to get a booking because he wanted to play against Chelsea. Is that because he's keen for a move to Chelsea, or is there another option? What's going on with Declan Rice here? Because we're getting close to January now. His contract runs out in 2024. The Sharks are circling, aren't they, Hugh?
Oh, they will be, absolutely. His performances for England during Euro 2020, I think it showed that he had gone up a level. He was so important to Gareth Southgate's side. Of course, they reached the final as well. He put everything in that final before he was taken off. He's one player that you really can't doubt in an England shirt. And I've got to be perfectly honest with you, nor can you in a West Ham shirt. He's ever improving. I think it's reached the point where I think he would feel like he's good enough and should be playing Champions League football. So the question is, will he be playing Champions League football next season in a West Ham United shirt or in a shirt of another club? Maybe Chelsea, maybe even Manchester City. Probably the team that needs him most, Manchester United. But there's going to be a big price tag attached. By the way, the game on Saturday means so much to Declan Rice and all the West Ham players and all the West Ham fans. West Ham versus Chelsea, if you didn't know it already, is a simply huge fixture for the fans of both teams, a massive London derby. So Declan Rice would have wanted to play, and it's absolutely fantastic for West Ham that he will be playing. But I don't know how much he would cost. I think it's going to be huge.
So according to certain websites, they're suggesting that his market value is 63 million. Would you say that's fair for someone who's only scored one goal so far this season, only got three assists in 14 matches? One question I did want to ask you was, do you feel like the ceiling that he can hit with West Ham has been hit now? You know, as someone who's kind of a box-to-box midfielder, kind of a defensive midfielder, you know, those numbers that I'm putting out there, is it unfair for me to sort of show any focus on that? Or can he get better? Can he score more goals?
He can get better. There's certainly one thing I would say is over the past few weeks, he's sort of unlocked the ability to go forward more, carry the ball, try and thread those passes through, and also get shots off. But I do think it's slightly taken away from his defensive strength by doing that. You know, I don't think he needs to be a box-to-box midfielder as much as he wants to show everyone that's a job that he can do. I think in modern football, paired with some fantastic midfielders, he could well just be one of those players who intercepts, reads play really well, starts moves off. He doesn't have to do everything. I think that's a message.
So more like his role for England then?
More like his role for England. I think we need to be honest here and say he's a young player. I think David Moyes wants to see what he has. Why not unleash a player that can do absolutely everything? But I think in the long term, he just needs to stay a little bit controlled and remind himself what his job in the bigger picture actually is. But look, he's a fantastic player, as I say. And I think it's a bit like a Jack Grealish situation at Aston Villa, to be perfectly honest with you, when it comes to the possibility of him moving. If a huge club comes in for him, I don't think the West Ham fans would begrudge him that. I think he's been fantastic in a West Ham United shirt. They might feel differently if West Ham reach the Champions League next season.
Do you think he would stay one more season then if West Ham were to get to the Champions League? He'd have to, wouldn't he?
I think he would. I definitely think he would. He's got a contract to 2024. That would take him to a year left on his deal. West Ham United would still, I think, get a lot of money. I think there would be a lot of bidders for Declan Rice if they sold him at that point, and he would get to wear the club shirt in the biggest competition in club football in Europe. But I think when it comes to the price tag for Declan Rice, as I said, it's a bit like Jack Grealish. If there were a release clause, I don't think there is, he would go for whatever that is. His value to West Ham United is probably in the £100 million mark. And I think fans of West Ham will look around at other players being bought and think Declan Rice should be going for around that mark. You know, I personally feel like 80 million would be something that around the figure that you would pay for Declan Rice. There's no point talking about his market value because English club to English club and an English player involved means the market changes drastically. I don't know how much you think he'd be worth, or where he would play next. Do you think he would stay at West Ham long term?
I think that's a good marker. I think he seems like quite an emotional guy at times. And I think the romance of leading West Ham out in the Champions League, I think would be a little too much for him. So if they are able to get there, then he will have. That's the other thing, is I think his price goes through the roof as well if they get to the Champions League, because he's obviously the main man for them. Let's move on to the game itself then, because you've got West Ham, who are struggling a little bit. I think personally, when it comes to West Ham, I feel like they're looking a touch tired. Antonio has stayed fit this season, and therefore I think he's playing so many games. He's starting to look a little flat, as are a lot of the players in the side. They got themselves a set-piece goal against Brighton and did have moments, but overall they seemed to wilt a little bit as the game went on. And of course, Chelsea next up. It's a tough task for them. Looking at Chelsea, a week ago, we put the curse on them. We said, are they the best team in world football right now? Since then, two quite unconvincing performances. And Chelsea have made 50 changes to their starting 11 in the Premier League this season. That's the most by a side after 40 matches since 2009, 2010. Is that a problem for Tuchel, the amount of changes, because you lose an element of rhythm, or is it something that he should really stick with going into the Christmas period?
I mean, he did lose a rhythm, certainly, against Watford. I think he made 6 changes in that game alone. And to be perfectly honest, they weren't at their best, but they did get the job done. I think a lot of people over the history of the Premier League say that's the mark of champions. It might be a massive cliche, but again, I think Watford played well. Chelsea played badly. They could have easily got something out of the game. Claudio Ranieri's side in the end. Thomas Tuchel very unhappy and very open about how unhappy he was with his team's performance. But the winning goal by Hakim Ziyech was still a great team move, and they still showed glimpses of what they can do. Very talented players in that Chelsea squad. You just can't play great in every game. And if Manchester United under Michael Carrick and that draw that they got at Stamford Bridge is going to be the blueprint, well, I think Chelsea are going to win a lot of games because they had 66% possession. They had 24 shots at goal. And I think if Timo Werner had brought his shooting boots, he would have got a hat-trick. In the end, I think he's going to get dropped. Romelu Lukaku came off the bench in that game. I imagine he will start against Chelsea in this one. They want to get him back as soon as possible. Simply put, he will not miss all those chances that Werner did, and Chelsea will be winning matches once again. You would have to make them overwhelming favourites, given that most of their first team got a rest in midweek as well. I don't know how you see this game going. I think it would be very entertaining, but West Ham haven't won their last 3 games. In fact, they've lost them all. They haven't lost them all. They haven't won in any of their last 3 games. They will want to get back to winning ways at home against Chelsea. That's the sort of thing that can really spark your season into life. How do you see it going?
I'm struggling with this one. I actually think it might be a little bit boring, this one. I think you've got 2 teams that might be a little bit flat. West Ham will, I think, retreat somewhat and try and play on the counter-attack. Might be a game where you start to rotate and bring in someone like Lanzini, who's been quite good in some of the cameos that he's offered up. I still think Chelsea might have a little bit too much. I actually think the rotation is something that will be kind of put towards them as a weakness, but overall, certainly during the Christmas period, I see it as a massive strength and going into the new year as well. So I think it'll be a tight game. Could be a draw for West Ham, but I expect Chelsea to sneak the win. Maybe a 1-0, maybe a 2-1 for Chelsea. What's your score prediction, mate?
Yeah, I think it'll be tight as well. Chelsea going away from home against West Ham United is always a difficult one. West Ham do pretty well at home against Chelsea because it's one of those games the fans are really, really up for. So I'm going to go for West Ham in this one, a 2-1 win.
Hi guys, James Alcott here from ESPN's Football Forecast. Thank you for watching. If you've enjoyed the video and you want to check out more, make sure you subscribe to ESPN UK.